Top 10 Richest Countries in Africa. Number 10, Ghana. Ghana is one of the largest economies in Africa. The West African country has the second largest economy in the region and one of Africa's fastest growing economies. Ghana is the world's second largest cocoa producer, trailing only Ivory Coast, and Africa's largest gold miner, producing more than 100 metric tons of gold per year. Some of the reasons for Ghana's recent economic boom include a favorable business environment, a committed and progressive government, private sector participation, political stability, transparent regulations, and a thriving private sector. Ghana's GDP is derived from the services sector, 1/5 from agriculture and industry, and 1/4 from manufacturing, with its total GDP standing at $73 billion. Number 9, Tanzania. Tanzania is one of the fastest growing economies in Africa and one of Africa's most attractive investment destinations. Tanzania has experienced 2 decades of uninterrupted economic growth, ranking among the 10 fastest growing economies in Africa during that time, with an annual average growth rate of 7%. Tanzania will graduate from a low-income country to a middle-income country 5 years earlier than expected in July 2020. Tanzania's economy is driven by agriculture, mining, tourism, manufacturing, livestock, and fishing, with a GDP of around $78 billion. Tanzania's political stability, natural endowments, and strategic geographic location are just a few of the factors that have helped it maintain its position as one of Africa's largest economies in recent years. Number 8, Ethiopia. With an annual GDP growth of about 11% in the last 14 years, Ethiopia has enjoyed one of the fastest economic growth in the world in the past decade. Capital accumulation, through public infrastructure, investments and foreign direct investment, among other factors, has driven the country's economic growth. The nominal GDP of Ethiopia is around $107 billion. Ethiopia's agriculture, service sector, financial services, manufacturing, transportation, and tourism sectors all contribute significantly to the country's economy, with Ethiopian Airlines, the largest airline in Africa in terms of passengers carried, destinations served, fleet size, and revenue, serving as a shining example of the country's thriving transport sector. Number 7. Kenya. An East African country well known for its vast landscapes and wildlife, is next on the list of Africa's richest countries by GDP. Kenya's economy has recovered well from the pandemic's disruptions, growing by 6.8% in the first quarter of 2022. According to the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics, this is the largest economy in eastern Central Africa. Kenya's economy nearly doubled in 8 years, rising from $58 billion in 2014 to $114 billion in 2022. Agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, manufacturing, energy, tourism, and financial services are among Kenya's major industries. Number 6, Angola. Angola, a vast country with a long coastline and central plateau. In the past few years, Angola's economy has suffered heavily from the effects of lower oil prices and production levels, despite significant progress on macroeconomic stability and structural reforms. However, thanks to the recent increase in oil prices, the southern African country's economy has begun to recover. Crude oil sales account for nearly 1/3 of Angola's GDP and 95% of its exports. The nominal GDP of Angola is $124 billion. Number 5, Morocco. Morocco's economy is considered as a liberal economy by experts governed by the law of supply and demand. Since the 1980s, privatization in certain sectors has had a positive impact on Morocco's economy, assisting in the growth of its economy and infrastructure. The service sector accounts for slightly more than half of Morocco's GDP, with mining, construction, and manufacturing accounting for about a quarter of the country's GDP, and agriculture accounting for about 14%. The North African country has a GDP of around $133 billion, making it Africa's fifth largest economy. Number 4, Algeria. An economy dominated by export, trade of petroleum and natural gas, Algeria is one of the largest economies in Africa. Algeria's economy has been primarily reliant on hydrocarbons since the 1960s, when the country began extracting mineral resources. Algeria is the world's sixth largest natural gas exporter. Oil and gas account for nearly 95% of export revenues and 30% of GDP. Algeria has the fourth largest economy in Africa, with a GDP of $193 billion. Number 3, South Africa. The South African economy is essentially based on the private sector. Since the end of World War II, South Africa has established a well-developed manufacturing base and has since then remained Africa's most industrialized nation. Africa's most industrialized, technologically advanced, and diverse economy. With a GDP of $426 billion, South Africa is Africa's third largest economy. A unique combination of highly developed first-world economic infrastructure and a massive emerging market economy has created a strong entrepreneurial and dynamic investment environment, making South Africa a gateway to Africa's emerging markets for a long time. Number 2, Egypt. The recent surge in economic activity has set Egypt on track to achieve economic supremacy on the African continent. Egypt's economic growth has been strong and resilient since the start of economic reforms in 2016, when Egypt began liberalizing the capital account, attracting foreign investors. The North African country has seen a significant increase in retail market sales and product influx from major international corporations, attracting many international brands. Egypt's GDP is approximately $435 billion. Number 1, Nigeria. Nigeria has stood as Africa's biggest economy since 2020, when it re-emerged as the continent's biggest economy. Africa's most populous country and the world's seventh most populous country. Nigeria is an enticing investment destination, with abundant natural resources and a sizable consumer market. Nigeria's economy is a mixed economy with a middle income and an emerging market, with expanding manufacturing, financial services, communications, technology, and entertainment sectors. The Nigerian economy, valued at $510 billion by the IMF, is heavily reliant on the oil industry, which accounts for more than 90% of total export earnings. That's all there is to it. These are Africa's 10 richest countries. You can let us know what you think in the comment section.